So I was starting to clean the studio, but I was hearing something I needed to say, and this is how this artist vlog came in. Of course I need to distract myself, so here you go. It's all about I'm going to talk about my layered process and the cyclic nature of how I see working. It's not always what it seems. Is very important. Is one thing. It's like layered. I'm always in it on some level. I'm always working towards something more, and sometimes these larger things sit around while I work on these other ideas and kind of leave one world to go into another and give this time to think. So I wanted to get on here and make a video about my process and kind of dispel some misunderstandings that sometimes I met with in a bunch of different ways. These are larger pieces that I'm currently working on, and they're kind of in a standstill. They're 40 inches by 30 inches. So I'm kind of always moving around with the work, and then I also have these 24 by 24s. They're all in various stages. So this is a layered process, a layered paper and paint and drawing process. That's one element of, the larger work and when I'm building the body of work. But what I wanted to say about these moments, and often you just see me doing this kind of work because it's easier to just make this moment. It's harder to show for me like a long thought out piece because this isn't immediate. So I want to talk about this. It's not always fast. I love a fast immediate moment. It's more like a way to train myself to enter these larger moments. And this is important to my art practice and my art process. To stay in the practice, I like to always be doing this. And lately I've been moving to these large drawings, but sometimes they include paint. So these are 24 inches by 18 inches. I want to say that when we go from a 9 by 12 to a 24 by 18, and then, it's a jump each time. So maybe you're not ready to make the large work, but that doesn't mean you can't make the small work. And also I want to say that these aren't always just this, I do have like the one class, Unleashing Creative Freedom, I'll put up there. That's a layered paper and paint process, which is, anywhere from like 6 to 8 to 10 layers. And I'm really searching in that work. And this work, I'm kind of having more of an immediate moment, and it's a feeling and an impulse. It's all important to moving into this work or making a more layered piece. So I like the immediacy of a moment and a mark. And starting to think about drawing more than painting, or how they there's that blurry line. There is paint here, but I'm thinking about it more as a mark, as a drawn mark. And that's often what I teach in relationship to using, say, our mixed media tools and how it kind of intersects and crisscrosses with a paintbrush. But lately I've just been using my hand, and a lot of you know that out there. We all start from somewhere different, and I think that's important to say. You don't always start off where you can internally reach those spaces and places inside of yourself. Also, a lot of the teachings out there don't really address the emotional and mental and energetic understandings that one has to reach in order to get really intimate and like be able to let go more and more. Of course, that's also a process and a practice, and we can always let go more. The one reason for building the FACE program that starts on January 3rd, 2025, which is an 8-week online program made by me, we're talking about all the bodies: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic. And that's like a spiritual concept, which is abstract. And then we're gonna like look at how it relates to energy, emotion, intuition, and then integration. And integration is about the body of work, but maybe it takes time, and often it does. So it's getting okay with that, right? Because if you are scared to make the mark, you're never gonna get to this place. It's just the truth. So maybe some of us have to start facing the fear of what it means to even make a lot of iterations of these marks. You know what I mean? Like, because this can be intimidating as much as that, depending on where we're starting from. So, and that's why FACE is an exploratory and experimental program. It's a hybrid energy and abstract program. It's all abstract though, because it has my understanding with these crisscrossing elements combined. And that's important because when you just want to like let go, it's not always the easiest thing to do, because not only will we come up with our own judgments in our mind, we'll come up with the external judgments that have been put upon us. So if your desire is more freedom and less control, well, there's a lot of things to like anchor around, and think about and like really look. But to me, the looking is more about the internal looking. And addressing the fears head on, and also not thinking about this as separate from that. Oftentimes when people teach us about sketchbooks, or they want to keep it hidden and private, but really it's about, to me, it's about exposing it. And that's why I never like shied away from sharing my process or my thinking in these videos, because it's actually some of the things that I got lost in, thinking that it couldn't be exposed, and it wasn't, you know, people will say don't show immature work, but it's just what somebody says. It doesn't mean it has to be the case. And what happens when you're in fear? You know, for me, it was really important to start sharing, and I was afraid. I was afraid not just of what I was making at the time, but I was afraid of who I was and what I love, and really diving into the expressions, you know. And actually, this is why FACE is coming into being, because I did face all those fears. And I would say I'm at another level here now. As I open up the next door in the chapter, I'm facing myself again. We're always going to be facing it. This is important because there is no definitive recipe for like the one answer in art or living or spiritual practices, relationships, love, you know. That I know for sure, and I just want to speak into that, because when you can open up to that really understanding, then you're able to fly more freely into the mark in the moment. You know, because maybe this meant nothing, but maybe it meant everything. Do you know what I mean? And that happens all the time, everywhere, in everything, you know, like in the sense of some days it does mean the world, and then other days it might be falling apart and not what you thought. Or in relation to art making, 8 years ago I was not making what I was making, not with the confidence That's for sure. You know, because I was afraid, so all that fear was here. And I couldn't really, you know, I remember being so afraid to paint in the class that I was in, because I was like comparing myself to a lot of other people and getting like locked up in my own thinking and realizing I just wasn't that good, which is like true. When you're a beginner, you're just not that good. You just can't be. It's just the nature of it. You can't compare your 1 year to somebody's 30 years. And I can't take my 8 years and compare it to someone's 30 years, really. Although, what I noticed, if you become like really prolific in your practice, you can kind of raise yourself up in the moment because you're relentless. And then the gap starts to close a lot. But one thing about face in relation to like me, I never really compromised what I wanted to do. But sometimes I didn't know how to get there. And sometimes I was terrified thinking it wasn't the quote right way because I was too much externally looking at what everyone was saying, and I attached to things that weren't really true. Not true for me. They were true for those people, and they were their stories, right? So we really want to like often unattach from the story that we're telling ourselves, which is really hard to do because we're living with ourselves all the time. And we want to unattach from the external. So you're kind of getting to become a clear channel for your expression. Of course, there is technical considerations to consider, but I don't think they really matter as much as getting into the internal heart of the matter. And finding your way in your art practice and art process, because my way might not be your way. But I feel like it's always important to stay in the practice, because you're building the relationship to yourself in these moments, but you're also like having the experience. Only you can really give yourself the experience in the end, you know. And like by you giving yourself these experiences, what happens is, you look less and less externally, you know, like, cause you just are like living into your art practice, and then it's living into your life in the sense of you become fully who you are and you start saying what you really feel instead of what you think you should. This is going to change your life and change the way you show up to your creative work, because then you just realize it's just a journey for you. It's not about what anyone else says. I know, ironically. But what happens is getting into like a class or a program, you want to maybe move into what's resonant for you. Not everything's gonna resonate. It's just not. Teachers, other artworks, what people are saying. But I'm not saying don't learn is what I'm trying to say. But I feel like learning comes from you ultimately, because it's by doing the work, right? But when we're locked up and scared, we can't like touch down into the emotional body as much, because we don't even know how to feel. And this happens in our physical beingness. It happens in like all these other bodies, the emotional, the spiritual, energetic. And this is from my understanding and my lived experiences, and also the many blow-ups and detours and dead ends, and not just in the art and creative practice, but in showing up to my life, and realizing that oftentimes it's a mixed bag. We don't always just get it the way we want, like in this linear way. There's like these pitfalls and like epiphanies, you know, and then it's the good and the bad, and it's all here. But what happens when you become more resilient with yourself, in the artworks, is like you hone in onto like, I'm just gonna do this no matter what. No matter what. And that means no matter what any external award can bring you, you're gonna do it no matter what. That's really revolutionary for yourself when you can feel that inside your body. Because I know, like, as a person that had the history of quitting so many things, so many times, in so many ways, I definitely almost quit the art making. Like, a lot of times, even a year ago. But you know what I always did is I always turned it in, all that feeling, and put it right back into the art. So I can say that 1,000% that I didn't quit. I actually always pitched up and put that emotionality into the work, even the pain and the rejection and the fear and the disillusionment. These are emotions and energies we can work with in order to transform ourselves, and also then find more freedom in the artwork and find more freedom in our bodies, and that's important, you know. So I know that 1,000% that it's possible to stay with it. And of course, I'm not saying you have to if you don't want to, but if the desire is to stay with it and stay in it no matter what, then I know you can do it, is what I'm telling you. You know, it's never like you have to do this. It's only if you want to. And I know that for decades I really wanted to, but I was so locked up and so afraid and, you know, so besides myself. So, you know, that could take time to work it out and come online and align to what we want to say. And, you know, I'm still going through my own stuff too, because, you know, life can be challenging on the back end of things, the stuff you don't see, right? The stuff you don't really want to talk about because it's just too hard, or it's not the right time, it needs more years, or maybe you'll never talk about it. But that doesn't mean you can't show up to the mark in the moment and actually just share that it's been challenging, right? You don't have to reveal it all in order to start to heal on these other levels. But I think we have to reveal it to ourselves, you know. Because when you're like locked up in the lie, it doesn't fly. Like, all that anxiety is probably just the things you haven't let go of or released out into the world. The reason why art making is so important is because it's true. You don't always have to tell the story, but you can have the emotionality of the memory and release it. But maybe not everyone's looking for that either. But in my practice and process in life, I don't want to turn anything away, hence face. That's why face is invented. It's actually, you know, something I'm always doing, and you'll never stop facing yourself because there's always gonna be something, you know. Every next like layer or like level requires that new version of you. And every maybe next body of work requires something else, or maybe you want to make a change. It requires just like being with yourself, which sometimes is hard. Who wants to sit with it all? But like this art, expressive, intuitive, raw, emotional art is in my practice is the cyclic practice, where I'm always staying in the process on some level with these, which eventually this informs that. But at the same time, this can be a standalone moment if we're paying attention to how it's put together. Like this one to me is pretty much like a good moment, like where I'd keep it, and it becomes very personal. That's the thing. So you want to get closer to yourself by looking, and it's very intimate to look at all the stuff to kind of address what the fears really are. What are the true desires? Maybe I do just want to make these raw, crazy marks, and but you didn't feel safe enough, or you felt like it was foreign, because maybe that's not what someone was teaching or showing you, but it's just natural to your process. So when we face ourselves, we become more clear on what we really want to say, and then the more we do these like practices here, the more we can open up to the larger, more layered moments. So, and it doesn't mean one is better or less, or better or worse. It just means, what are you most interested in? And I think that's the most important thing as artists and creatives and people that want to say something, whatever that is, express, all the sides, and come online and come alive and be just who you are in the process of it all. That's exciting because it will change your life. And that is, priceless. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the layered work versus a lot of the drawings versus a lot of the larger drawing moments, because it's all relative and it's all important to my practice, my art practice, and staying in it to build into these larger experiences. And I feel like I had to face my own fears by doing a lot of experiments in order to get clearer on what I wanted to say. And that is kind of changing. It's just becoming more apparent and more dominant and it's stronger. I notice it for myself. And I was afraid of it in the beginning, and depending on the day, I still can be afraid of it, because is it's only when I start attaching to the external stories, right? Is this, all that stuff that pulls you out? So you kind of want to bat that away, like if you're a cat batting a ball of yarn, and kind of bring it back inside, because then you'll just stay with this more and more, and those external things will start to, I think, fall away less and less now. It's not perfect, it's a practice, remember that, and every day is different, so one day you might get trapped again, but you always want to take yourself back out of that, and realize this is what you're doing, and show up to these moments, and keep creating from this internal space. And that's possible because when you have more awarenesses, you realize you're getting trapped in the external, you come back to the self and you just keep making the work. And that happens in also spiritual practices. When you realize you're getting carried away, you dial it back to the self. So you can become more aware, more resilient, and have this strength within you, which is real powerful, because then you become a force to be reckoned with. And you may still have doubts and worries, and even sometimes fear, but it will be less and less and less, and that's how you show up daily to everything.